Hi, Roy here on my channel. Roy Reads Anything, where I talk about old books that are strange or interesting or just weird. And currently away on a trip, going to talk about what I've read in a week away. And these books, I think they're an example. They're all examples of where, rather than reading my sort of preferred genres, which I suppose science fiction, westerns, that kind of thing. I've picked up things based just on curiosity as to what could this book possibly be like. Starting with The Devil Wives of Li Fong. The Devil Wives of Li Fong by E. Hoffman Price. This came out in 1979 and it promises the magic of Cathay. And it's great pulp artwork on the cover. Kind of, the title's a bit sort of sensationalized. It makes it sound as if it's going to be a kind of boo to women kind of thing, with these devil wives being devilish. Not really that at all once you're into the story. So E. Hoffman Price, he must have been quite old by then because he was writing in pulp magazines like Weird Tales way back. I think of him as a contemporary of H.P. Lovecraft, for instance. Um, so he obviously knew quite a lot about Buddhism and Taoism, and sounds like he was involved with the Chinese community in San Francisco. So he's using that to weave a pulpy adventure story. So the two women who are the main protagonists, they have been um, serpents. They've been reincarnated as serpents for millennia. It's been ages since they've been human due to some transgressions in the past, I think involving sorcery. And then through a sort of caught up in a benevolent ritual of a monk who's addressing Kuan Yin, the goddess of compassion, and they get made human again. So they want to stay human and do human things and basically be good. But because adventures befall them, they're in jeopardy because of, I think they've unearthed some treasure and people are trying to get the treasure, so they're being attacked by magicians and stalked by con men. So, do they use their remembered magical abilities but possibly condemn themselves to going back to serpent form for another huge length of time, or can they somehow survive and thrive without that happening? So the kind of interesting dilemma for the Mei Ling and Mei Lan. Yeah, they marry this guy called Li Fong, who's a young herbalist, and it's great. It's rather sweet, really. It's a love story. It's a story about choice to use power when it's expedient or not. I enjoyed it a lot. Um, what else would I say about it? Well, clearly there's Orientalism. Now, if you forgive the sort of Chinese restaurant writing a bit, but it's that sort of, I mean, we were reading Fu Manchu recently, and that's like the yellow peril. That's China as this adversary threatening Western countries. This is more like a mystical, fantastic China that is in a sort of slightly indeterminate past, that is a desirable place and a sort of fantasy landscape. Uh, Other examples of that, there's Ernest Brammer's Kai Lung books from, I think they were 20s and 30s, Barry Huggett's Bridge of Birds. Seems to be something that crops up again and again. So it's sort of, yeah, it's through Western eyes looking at this imagined China and using it as a fantasy setting. So I suppose you could say it's kind of a other side of the coin to the yellow peril trope. Anyway, yes, Devil Wives of Lee Fong. Now I know what an E. Hoffman Price book is like. I also, because I thought we were coming to Wales, turned out to be, we're not literally staying in Wales, but we've crossed the border a number of times. I brought with me a Mills and Boon Euromance. So again, curiosity killing the cat. On another holiday, picked up one of these Mills and Boon Euromances from a free shelf in a supermarket. Wondered what they were like, so much that I bought them all. I'll link to the video where I give an overview of the entire massive series, but basically it was early 90s. Britain had just joined the European community, and riding on the coattails of that, there was a series of books based in various countries of the EU. I think most of the UK got one. Obviously, this is the Wales one, so you get, amongst other things, you get a little map showing the locations of the story. In the back, there's a 6-page fact file about Wales from a tourist perspective. You recommend some museums. Here, we should do this, Jen. Alternatively, and perhaps more appropriately, if you're holidaying with your lover, the Welsh love spoon is a popular souvenir. These were traditionally carved by a man for his betrothed as a sign of love.
Yeah, I want one
They
of
can
them.
be very elaborate and have various symbols carved into them.
Yeah.
For example, balls carved into the handle represent the number of children. Now, come on, this is a family channel. Balls carved into the handle represent the number of children the woman can expect to have. That would be pretty alarming at this stage of the game.
A holy blessed miracle at this stage.
A chain represents the chain of love. A key represents the key to the heart, to name but a few. Anyway, the book. It's a category romance. Probably about the 3rd or 4th Mills and Boon I've read. Good. Interesting in that the sort of forceful alpha male character, who is the sought after lover, I suppose. I mean, I think that's been true of all of the ones I've read. This time is an artist rather than the usual businessman. So that's interesting. And there's jeopardy, because Naomi, here's what happens. When Naomi's journalist sister asked her to infiltrate the lair of the dragon, Bran Llewellyn's private Welsh retreat, she couldn't refuse. But she hated the deception of posing as Bran's secretary, especially once she discovered that the famous artist had been temporarily blinded in an accident. So you know all along, you know Naomi and Bran are the two who are going to get together, but you also know that somehow this deception that's creating a newspaper article about his normally secret life is going to cause the third real setback. So yep, good stuff. Euromances for the win. And then a book I bought here from Oddbot Books, a Georgette Heyer. So these Heyer books, I've seen them around my whole life. My nan read them, my mum read them, and I would just ignore them because, does it have an exploding robot on the front? It does not.
Therefore, Georgette Heyer would have written good science fiction.
Therefore, not of interest. Yeah, probably. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. The Quiet Gentleman, this one is called. I think it was written in the early 50s. This is a pan paperback edition from the 60s. Accidents that look like attempted murder. I just love all this. The Helvetica font, the way it's kind of modern and old at the same time. This painting by an artist called J. Oval, who did lots of stuff like this. So it's a Regency romance. Apparently, I'm sure everybody on earth apart from me knows all this. She virtually invented the Regency romance genre, wrote loads of books set in that period, And I would say, if you've ever read or tried to read a Jane Austen book and sort of thought, if only there was a fight around now or a bit more action, um, this is the writer for you, because as well as a romance and the sort of social comings and goings, there is a mystery of the jeopardy of this guy, who basically returns from the Napoleonic Wars. He's the owner of this estate, and all his relatives, who he hasn't seen for years and years, not delighted that he showed up again. Then these potential accidents keep happening. He's actually shot at one point. Who is it? I'd have to say I worked out who it was pretty early on, but there's an obvious choice: his half brother.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and it's fantastic. Lots of colour, fantastic language. It's really funny, and she drops in what I would call historical Easter eggs. So somebody will be talking a bit about, a blaze of sunlight's come in and changed the look of the video. Yes, she'd suddenly be talking about Mary Wollstonecraft's attempted suicide, which does two things. One, it makes you think, gosh, she did lots of research, which she did, but also makes you think, aren't I clever, knowing that that's a real thing. So great world building, exciting Easter eggs, brilliant language, and driving plot. Great. I can see why people were addicted to these and read them by the dozen. So I will be reading more Hayers, although I'm keen to get them in these editions. I think they look really great, and she's got her own sort of logo. Yes, so that's what I've been reading holiday wise. Back soon with something else.